Imagine playing a video game where 50% of the map is locked. You can walk around, but you can't interact, you can't trade, and you can't unlock the best missions. Well, that is your life right now without Spanish. You see, speaking a new language is not only a useful skill for job opportunities or showing off with your buddies. It is about discovering a new world, new cultures, new people. Everything that you know and may be interesting about life nowadays will be even more immense and interesting if you were able to communicate with more people. Now, when it comes to learning languages, having the right motivation is extremely important. Actually, most people who want to learn a language fail at doing so because they didn't really choose it for a valid reason. There are essentially two main categories when it comes to motivation: internal motivation and external motivation. Examples of external motivations to learn Spanish may be speaking Spanish in front of your friends to look cool, trying to apply for a job, or the social pressure of doing something productive with your life. As you may notice, these reasons are not as strong as the internal motivations, the real ones. You may want to learn Spanish simply because you would like to understand the lyrics of a song, or traveling to a Spanish-speaking country and being able to communicate with the native speakers. Or maybe just because it sounds cool, let's be honest. Now, I don't really know what's your motivation to learn Spanish, but in this video, I will certainly give you some extra one. Let's get started with this. There are over 8.2 billion people in the world right now. But be careful with these one. What we call a billion in English is actually called mil millones in Spanish. So if you ask a Spanish-speaking person, they will tell you that we are 8.000 millones. Anyways, of all these people, more than 500 million speak Spanish, 7.5% of the world, which makes it the fourth most spoken language in the world. It may not sound like a lot, but keep in mind that only between 13 and 20% speak English. Yes, only 13% of the world. That's the part that you got to know so far. But imagine how much you're missing. We got to our third reason to learn Spanish: difficulty. If you only speak one language, learning a new one may seem like a difficult thing to do. However, especially if you speak English, learning Spanish is not as hard as you may think. Let's break it down. There are different types of languages, such as Slavic languages like Russian, Polish, or Ukrainian. Germanic languages like German, of course, or English. Or Romance languages like Italian, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. So depending on which language you speak, learning Spanish can be objectively harder or easier for you. But here's the good news. Although English and Spanish are not in the same family, they're pretty similar. For example, there are many words that sound almost the same, like important and importante. These are called cognates. And when it comes to vocabulary, almost 60% of English words actually come from Latin. This actually brings us to our next point, which is learning one language opens a lot of doors, meaning that learning other languages, especially if they are from the same family, is way easier now. Have you ever wondered how can these guys who speak 4, 5, 6, 10 languages have enough time to learn them all? If it takes you 3 years to learn a language going to an institute, it means that it should take you 30 years to learn 10 languages, and I can see why you aren't interested in that. However, that's luckily not how it works. It is more like a snowball. Once you started, you not only learn how to learn, yes, I know that sounds weird, but it makes a lot of sense. You improve your ability to learn a language by doing so during time, but also you now can speak a language that is very similar to others. So if it would originally take you 2 years to learn Portuguese, learning Portuguese while already speaking Spanish may only take you 1 or just a few months. But there's more. Although people usually think about learning a language as going to an institute or get a private teacher, attend to your lessons, do your homework, and magically speak the language, there's a better way. And I'm not saying that the traditional method doesn't work, but there's a much more enjoyable and fun way of doing it. So we got to our next reason. It's funnier than you think. Think about when you were a baby. Unless you were some kind of freak, you could not talk. But how did you really learn to speak your first language? Was it by having grammar lessons twice a week with your mom? Or memorizing vocabulary for homework? Not really. And you may have heard a lot of times that learning is easier for little kids than it is for adults. Well, guess what? That's not necessarily true. The difference is not in the age, but the methodology that we use to learn our language. Ask yourself, how many hours a day did you spend listening to your parents, people in your family, or just watching TV in that language? Would it make sense to expect the same results now that you dedicate 1 hour per week? Definitely not. But it's not only the amount of time, but also the quality of it. It's not about reading grammar books and remembering rules, although, again, this may work for many people. It's about listening a lot, exposing yourself to the language as much as you can, although I will make videos specifically talking about this. The last thing I want to say is, your brain is actually made for learning languages. It is not supposed to be hard. It may take time, but humans are made for this. Now let's talk about accents. As you may know, different accents exist in basically every single language. There's no such a thing as the correct or perfect way of speaking it. So usually, the accent that you have depends on where you were born. For example, if you were born in the USA, I'm pretty sure that you will talk different than a guy from the UK. The accent can even change in the same country. And if you haven't heard a person from Liverpool talking, go ahead, you will be surprised. But the cool thing about learning a new language is that you can literally choose the accent that you like the most. It may be because you prefer the way it sounds, because it feels more familiar than the other ones, or because you connect better with the culture of that specific accent. The good news are that in Spanish you have so many different accents from different countries. Even if you know absolutely nothing about Spanish, you will notice that people from Spain speak very differently from Mexicans, Argentinians, Puerto Ricans, and so on. So good luck choosing your own style. Finally, there's one more reason to learn Spanish in 2026. The thing is, it's up to you. I gave you a few examples and try to help you with the search, but even if nothing of what I said did cause an interest on you, it doesn't matter. There are millions of reasons that can make sense to you. And as for basically life by itself, it's just about finding your own reason. Maybe you just want to learn Spanish because of a movie character, a book, a video game, or just because you're into languages. It doesn't have to make sense to me or anybody else than yourself. By this point of the video, you should be super motivated to learn Spanish after all we said. And if that's the case, you may be asking yourself, how do I start? Well, you should first learn some basic words that you use every day. Get some vocabulary, but don't exaggerate. Then, as I told you before, you must prioritize listening initially at a basic level that you can comprehend. In this channel, you will find listening practices and what we call comprehensible input for you to practice as much as you want. Good luck with your journey, and stop wondering, when should I start? Do it right now.